Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Robin Janaway. I'm NFT drop lead Outlier Ventures. Just a little introduction about me first. I head up the NFT side of Outlier Ventures. We're a VC accelerator, pretty much, I think, the largest in the world right now. We'll be accelerating around 160, 200 crypto companies this year. And I cut across all the different accelerators, one of which is Polygon. And I manage sort of all the NFT drops for all the various NFT cohorts, which is quite exhausting, but we manage. I'm joined here by David Ann, who's partner at Greenfield 1. Hi, David.
Hi.
And also I'm joined by Luke Liu from NFT lead, so my counterpart at Polygon Studios. So
Yeah.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice. So today we're going to be talking about gaming. Gaming is really, really interesting and how it's evolved in sort of the last few years. Obviously, play to earn being a massive part of that. I'm sure you're all familiar with Axie Infinity. And the space always tends to evolve through UX, UI. The currency changes from kind of World of Warcraft and the mining of gold and those various economies all the way to play to earn. And where we are now, kind of in the multiple layers of play to earn, run to earn, watch to earn, and wherever the space is going now. So I kind of just want to get a grasp today on this space and where this space is going, and kind of an insight into kind of the play to earn economies and what's next and where we're going. So without further ado, David, do you want to give a little introduction about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Robin. Great to be on this panel. Great to be here. Super excited. A quick introduction from my side. So my name is David. I'm partner at Greenfield 1. We're headquartered here in Berlin. We're a VC, crypto-only fund. Our third fund is 160 million in size, and we do heavily invest in the Web3 space. And till now, we have basically invested in layer 1 infrastructure, DeFi, but we're also now focusing heavily on GameFi, Metaverse, and NFT.
Thanks. Leek?
Yeah, here, Ran. So I'm based in Singapore, and I work at Polygon, or Polygon Studios more specifically. So at Polygon Studios, we focus on onboarding the next wave of NFT projects, Metaverse projects, and also gaming projects. So at Polygon Studios, we really do see ourselves as like incubators for projects. We either support the projects with grants, investments, and even technical support, marketing support as well. And we already built up like kind of a huge ecosystem of strategic partners and projects on the blockchain. So we want to kind of like help reach out and do all the different projects, even those that are on other chains, and kind of bring them over to Polygon, drive out the number of transactions on the blockchain, and overall increase the value of Matic. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. So David, as you said, you're raising a fund, you're involved in kind of GameFi, etc. I'd love to know kind of what you look at in the market at the moment, and what your kind of targets are, and how you approach kind of the gaming investment side.
Okay. Okay, I warn you, I could go long question and long answer. So actually, I don't have an investment banking background. I actually have a career at 15 years in gaming, so I did a lot of publishing in the PC online game space, casual game space, and mobile space. And so the way I currently see it is, of course, we are super bullish about the play and earn and play to earn space in the Web3 game space right now. The growth in the NFT space has been quite phenomenal, with a couple of games such as Axie Infinity initially doing really well. And going forward, in the grand scheme of things, we think that everything that has value will be tokenized. So this will happen in the gaming sector as well as the music sector, in almost every vertical. We believe that Web3, so the basic fundamentals and values of Web3 will apply and basically take over a large chunk of the value. That's how we see it. And so we're very early, of course, in the play to earn and Web3 game space. So I don't sometimes even know these days how to call it play to earn, play and earn, X and earn. I heard actually 30 minutes ago from you, so thanks for teaching me on that. And I mean, obviously it's early. It is, I think we have about 3 million active wallets in play to earn games. The global market size, I think, of gamers is 3 billion gamers worldwide. So that's less than that's a thousand. So it's a 0.1% of gamers actually do play Web3 games. So it is early, but the growth trajectory is definitely there, the interest there, and also the budgets are flowing heavily into the space. So we see a lot of competition on the developing side. We see a lot of traditional free-to-play publishers all around the world. Also, I visited in Korea in January. All big free-to-play publishers are currently thinking about entering the space. So either doing their next free-to-play title or going into play-to-earn, play-and-earn Web3. Most of them, I would say 2/3, actually decide to go into the Web3 space. So we will see a heavy influx of budgets and development in that space.
And what kind of, you mentioned, I presume everybody here, first of all, knows what play-to-earn is, right? Everyone, some nods, a few nods, okay. So within play-to-earn economies, and you mentioned play-and-earn, is there anything specific that you look at, or are you still taking kind of fundamentals of team, you're taking fundamentals of tech, and you're believing kind of in the team to deliver a product? You're not specifically looking at any kind of rails?
So the criteria that we do apply when looking at investment opportunities is, number one, is the management team. So we have seen in the past 12 months quite a few, I would say, crypto native teams that enter the space that do not have a gaming background. And so this is, I mean, many of the games that I see still in the market lack quality in terms of game design and fun and entertainment and longevity, actually. So we do take a look at management quite closely. We want to invest in management teams that have done it before. Most of them might not have traditional Web3 experience, but at least we think that a solid track record and having built a game, which is really, really complex, really difficult. It's a long-term project that involves a lot of people, arts, storytelling, front-end, back-end, game design, nowadays tokenomics, and of course, a lot of live operations, content updates. So it is a very difficult, cumbersome thing to build games. I have all the respect for game developers out there who actually go to that journey. It is one of the most difficult projects, I think.
Nice, thank you. Luke, so over to you. So obviously Polygon Studios is synonymous with kind of gaming. You positioned yourself as kind of the gaming layer too. And obviously we Outliers, we have a Polygon kind of base camp, a Polygon accelerator. So we tend to get a lot of applications from gaming companies. So internally from you guys, are you seeing differences in trends? Are you seeing kind of from where we started with Axie to where we are now, are you seeing kind of different quality of products? Or what are kind of the key things you're noticing at the moment?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think I kind of concur with David as well. Right now, we see a lot of games, they are kind of leveraging the play-to-earn trend or the hype, and kind of just trying to incentivize people to kind of play the game to kind of earn some in-game currency, earn some NFTs in-game, and hopefully, make a profit from there. And after a while, we take so much, or so many calls every week, and a lot of the games seem to be kind of play-to-earn on crypto, but I think this is not that sustainable in the sense there's currently a huge influx of play-to-earn games, and a lot of them, as David might have mentioned, might not be, at its core, fun to play in the first place, right? So a lot of people, they kind of go to these games just as a form to make a quick buck, and then they hop on to the next game, and then after a while you start to see it's kind of this small group of people hopping from game to game to game, and that's why even some popular games, they blow up on Twitter and on Discord, and then after a while, a new game pops up, and then these group of guys, they move over, and then the token value drops, etc. So yeah, I guess that is a current problem. So right now, what's really exciting for Polygon is when we see games that are game studios that are building games that are actually fun to play to begin with, and the whole core of it is not just play to earn, but it's kind of you enjoy the game first, and then earning while playing is kind of a side thing. And I think that's where we are trying to head towards.
Okay, so that's the move from play to earn to play and earn. Yeah. The idea that the game, the joy of the game is kind of why you join the game. There just happens to be an economy on the side, right?
Yeah.
So you're head of NFTs there. So I'm interested. For me, every NFT project I've seen in the last 12 months, pretty much on their roadmap, has one of two things. One is a Metaverse activation or game, whatever that looks like. and the other one is an Unreal Engine or some game of some sorts. How do you think this is sustainable? Obviously, we know from the traditional kind of Web 2 gaming economy that it's all about scaling, it's all about user base. How do you think it's scalable, and how do you think it's sustainable that you have all these kind of micro games popping up from every NFT project?
Yeah, I think nowadays if you look at NFT projects as a whole, you kind of always see that after their first mint or their second mint, they always, in the roadmap, it's always like Metaverse activation, or like they're building their own game. But I think people don't really realize how hard it is to build a game. So being a gamer myself, playing like traditional games like Halo, Call of Duty, these games are the ones that people enjoy a lot, and people like nowadays they don't understand how hard it is to build a game, the amount of resources it takes, the team, the testing, the amount of money and time. And I think a lot of these projects tend to kind of like rush it out. I think we saw it with like Pixelmon and some of our other launches as well. It kind of lets the whole community down, and it gives a bad name to this space as well. So I do not think it's sustainable that every project is able to, launch their own metaverse or their own game, especially for like the NFT, like PFP projects, right? I think it's great that we have so many different PFP projects to allow us to express in ourselves in different ways on this, like social media and other forms, or platforms. But yeah, I think right now, even for Yuga Labs, the game that they're building is going to be a big test for the entire space as well. I think everyone's watching, and the trailer or the teaser, it looks good, but there's still a lot, there's still a lot more aspects to it. And I don't think, Yuga Labs is so massive, right? And I don't think that most projects can kind of like come close to what they're building. And if they can't do it, that's fine as well. I don't think that's something that everybody should expect from an NFT project as well. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so I've got a question about that. So I'm obviously incredibly bullish and a kind of devout believer in NFTs as kind of a long-term play. But when you're basing a game off an NFT drop, so let's say you do a PFP drop and you've dropped, 10,000, whatever, insert animal here. How then do you scale the users of the game without kind of damaging the Genesis assets? So, one of the big problems is you drop 10,000, or, some ecosystems like Fluff have done this pretty well, and they've dropped thousands of assets. They drop the seekers, they're always dropping. I don't know how they manage it, but in essence, they're trying to expand their IP, and they're trying to build out IP for a native metaverse, right? That's what they're trying to do, and they're trying to look ahead and think, okay, metaverses need to be populated, and they're going to be populated by Web3 IP. Maybe we need to acquire Web2 IP as well, but that's kind of where things are going as I see it. But how, from a pure gaming perspective, if you're an NFT project and your core responsibility is to protect your Genesis assets, i.e. to protect their floor, if you want, how are you scaling a game around that? What do you think? Like, for me, it's like, okay, you have guest logins or traditional methods, but it's quite interesting when you think about 10,000 players is nowhere near enough to sustain a game economy. So what are you, as Polygon Studios, what are you looking at as kind of solutions to this, or do you have any ideas? If you don't, it's okay, because I don't think many people do, but I'm just asking.
Yeah. I think that's a very good question, because as you mentioned, we just can't stick to the original 10,000 people to like kind of enjoy or build the game. But I think what Azuki did was really good, although they kind of got some flake down the line. But after that original launch, with their second launch with the beans and with Boki and all the different sub launches, it really complements the original Genesis launch really well. It actually added value to the original launch, and then the holders of the original launch were actually kind of benefited a lot because the floor price kind of doubled after that. But yeah, I think how it really complements is that it's not just a separate like PFP or NFT or character, but it's kind of like a side character, and that's something that allows people to. You can just buy a bean instead of a Azuki. It's cheaper for people to. The barrier to entry is lower as well, and I think that's something that NFT projects can consider, like to make sure that it all ties into the original launch, and hopefully people can kind of buy like sub launches and build their way up to the OG collection. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty hard to scale the game. I think they will have to kind of include free assets and free NFT airdrops to people who are wanting to try the game for the first time. I think the barrier to kind of play a crypto game for even for crypto natives is kind of like high, and I can't imagine for like non-crypto natives if they want to kind of try out this new game. They have to buy an NFT first. I think that's a bit hard. So you kind of have to do like free airdrops for them or free NFTs. It can be a little bit basic looking, but yeah, I think that's the bare minimum they should do.
Okay, nice. I think just on that, you kind of hinted at it, is the notion of kind of building out the story or of building out the story through drops of games. And I think we've seen in the strongest NFT projects, it's been around lore. It's been around lore building, story building, and in fact, creating your own kind of Web3 IP, as I touched on earlier. So do you think, from a gaming perspective, that you're going to see a branch of people who are just producing kind of IP for games, and then you're going to have the people that actually execute the build based on the IP of these projects? Because a lot of these projects now are really investing into the IP side because they see the opportunity of whatever, making a movie or whatever, Yuga Labs sees and Bored Ape sees it as. But do you think that applies to gaming as well, where you're going to have people that are building projects specifically to create these very dynamic characters, and then you're going to have kind of studio or I don't know, other teams coming aside and using that IP to build out games?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we are looking at, and that's kind of what we've seen in the market so far. We've kind of realized that these, let's say, original NFT projects, they're very good at building community, very good at like establishing a strong brand IP. And right now they're branching out, like even working with us in terms of like wanting to create like a mini movie series or some entertainment clips, not just gaming. So even when it comes to gaming, I think they want to find like proper like studios to partner with and people with like real game experience, so that their IP is well protected and the brand value is also protected, and then they're able to execute it like properly in that sense. Yeah, because I don't think they can do all of that on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. David, back to you. I haven't forgotten about you. I was wondering your thoughts on guilds. Obviously, since Axie and kind of the guild rush and everyone making a lot of money in guilds, obviously very closely tied to the play-to-earn economy. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on guilds now, maybe just...
I'm a little bit biased because we invested in a company that's currently a guild, and it's also basically investing. So it's actually there in the audience, of course, Unbound Nations, a German team, also French. So most of them are actually here in Berlin, and so Unbound Nation has started as a traditional guild, but the guild market, I think, is definitely evolving into a more data-driven platform approach plus investment. So because you have the scholars and you have access to players, which are basically the fundament of Axie Infinity. I think over 70% probably of Axie Infinity are based on scholars that are brought by guilds, right? So the question is that a sustainable model? In the long run, I don't know. I think guilds in general will evolve over time as more of an investment / data platforms for Web3 games, which basically give access in a more intelligent fashion to scholars that are actually part of that community of that guild.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've spoken to the guild recently, and they're really sort of focused now on the X to earn or the anything to earn kind of methodology. You've seen a massive amount of kind of run to earn and different kind of games coming out now, whether they're a fad or not, we'll see soon. But do you think that guilds will have to evolve past their kind of scholar methodology and they'll have to kind of look at it in a different way now?
So the traditional scholar model where you split the revenues with 70, 20, 10 basically is questionable. That in itself gives you as a guild a contribution margin, which makes it hard for you to do a living. So you have to, so most of the guilds that I see now are basically doing an asset play, so an investment in NFT assets and basically hoping that the assets will appreciate in value. I do think that the role of guilds, it will always be there, but the new breed of developers that at least land on my table try to become independent of guilds in a way. Yeah, so I think it's more, and also coming back to your question that you asked before, how do you scale Web3 games, is that I see many developers going to the route of trying to address a more global audience via smartphone, basically. So it starts actually the game is not a browser game. It's actually an app. The problem that I see there is that there are still a lot of issues with Apple and iOS policy that potentially could kill the whole model, especially when it comes to fiat off-ramp and basically cashing out any native tokens that you want to earn. That is something that I could see that Apple just not really appreciates a lot. However, there is a trade-off. So I see it like in a trade-off between users, platform complexity, and customer acquisition, I would say. So users, there's the audience of smartphone, which is big. There are over 3 billion gamers outside. Everyone has a smartphone. But then there's also like platform complexity. You have to manage your smartphone app as well as wallet integration, fiat on and off ramp. So that is a very difficult thing. So I think that trade-off is kind of something that you have to make when choosing how do you want to scale your game.
Nice, thank you. I guess it's a question for both of you. One of the kind of holy grail, I guess, of kind of play to earn is kind of transferability of assets, right? So it's the concept of having an NFT sword in one game and being able to transfer it to another in the utility to be recognized in the other game, cross-studio, cross-platform, cross-metaverse, cross-everything. How do we get there? And do you think that's a realistic notion, or do you think that's a Web3 pipe dream?
I think I think we will see it probably not on chain quite soon. We will see it in game publishers who will basically have the same NFT be transferred in their own proprietary ecosystem potentially. So I think the notion of having like a sword or an NFT that is in itself dynamic, that can walk across different games, like on-chain, and can even be dynamic, I think it will still take a couple of years until that actually really happens. What I think will happen is that there will be a couple of game platforms or game publishers who will develop a bunch of games where these NFTs will be basically able to be used. So it's not on-chain, it will be closed and walled garden, but at least you can use them across those in this ecosystem. That's cool. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I actually agree with David, but I wanted to hear your opinion first, just in case it was in total contrast. But I actually think it's really, really hard to make it like cross everything. I'm not sure if even the community themselves sometimes want it, because sometimes they just enjoy a specific game and a specific kind of terrain so much, and I'm not sure if they kind of want those assets kind of like all over kind of the place, and sometimes they want those assets to kind of be so attractive that people, example, like go to Sandbox or go to these specific metaverses or games just to experience these assets, just to own these assets, rather than experiencing it in every possible game. And I think that's the main problem that I see for cross everything. Yeah.
Cool. That leads me nicely on to the next kind of subtopic, which is about metaverse gaming. Obviously, Metaverse was a huge interest last year. Obviously, Sandbox, DCL, etc. have been doing pretty well, although not recently. But I just want to know, kind of from Polygon's view, do you work closely with a specific Metaverse? Have you got is there a specific Metaverse that you see gaming projects kind of focusing on? Is that DCL at the moment? And we can talk about Sandbox after, but yeah, just so I know.
Yeah. We work really closely with blue chip metaverses, CryptoVoxel, Sandbox, Decentraland. We always kind of partner with different NFT projects and different games as well to bring them into these said metaverses. And we are even partnering with local fashion brands as well to bring these brands to the metaverse. And we are really proud to kind of be strong partners with these metaverses. And we really do see these blue chip metaverses as those that will kind of stay in the next few years. And that's why we are kind of putting a lot of attention into diverting projects into these specific metaverses instead of always looking for the next metaverse or always building a different metaverse. Of course, a lot of people choose Polygon blockchain to build a metaverse or launch their own metaverse. But currently, I feel that the complexity and the amount of detail in some of these metaverses, be it Sandbox or Decentraland, is kind of really up there. And I think the whole in-game tokenomics as well makes a lot of sense. And we're starting to kind of see more and more non-crypto native people be more interested in kind of experiencing these metaverses. And that's why a lot of mainstream brands big brand IPs are also looking to leverage that and kind of be a part of these like blue chip metaverses. Yeah.
So you're sticking your head out and saying that you believe in those metaverses in the long term, basically.
I hope so. Yes.
Okay. I'm just wondering though, the notion of what a game is and what a game is in the metaverse are two very different things. Can you kind of describe a game in a metaverse, a project that's come through that you've worked with, and like what they've managed to actually execute in terms of metaverse gaming? Or is it more of an activation? Because I know in Sandbox, the people go to Sandbox with high hopes of being able to do all sorts of things, and what you can build there at the moment is collecting some coins and an activation and maybe fighting with a sword. But what is your kind of view on the metaverse, maybe DCL, or what are people building there?
Yeah, I will say that right now it's still relatively primitive in the sense that you're right. It's just a lot of like random bashing or a lot of like token collecting and objective completing. But I think a lot of these games they really have like high hopes of building kind of like an immersive experience in these metaverses. And right now they're just starting off like kind of like example. I think one of the projects that we've worked with. They wanted to kind of bring big brand IPs or sport IPs into Sandbox, and they wanted to build like, for example, if like a player like Cristiano Ronaldo, he wants to be like kind of a presence in Sandbox, and then they can build a house that will be like kind of like a representation of his real house in the real world, and inside you get to see like example exclusive video clips of him when he was growing up, when he was training, and you get to kind of like complete these little objectives in the house and kind of unlock these small bonuses, and that's how they really like bring the sports fans into the metaverse. And of course they also have like other games as well, sub mini games. But yeah, I will agree that it's a lot of just bashing, killing. It's not too fun at the moment, but I guess that's how they engage the community, try to expand and deliver on their gaming or metaverse promise. And right now they're just looking for better sandbox builders as well to kind of build better worlds, more immersive worlds, and more immersive like game terrains as well.
Okay, nice, thank you. I guess one of the misconceptions is that kind of play to earn is new. I guess you mentioned there earlier about kind of currencies and different things, and I don't know even if you think about FIFA and FIFA Ultimate Team and World of Warcraft, they were locked in-game currencies in those games, and they were very successful, and people spent billions on them every year. That evolution of currency into tokenomics, which is where we are now. Do you see, have you got an idea of working on anything new at the moment in terms of tokenomics? Are you seeing anyone with anything innovative, or is it still kind of around the same model that we've seen with Axie and other projects like this?
For me personally, I think the idea of tokenomics is still relatively complicated, even to some of the top projects out there. It's really hard to kind of like determine the right amount of like supply of tokens and all of those aspects. And even internally for Polygon, we try not to advise projects on their tokenomics because it's so complicated and it affects a lot of people. So I think it's still a lot of us actually are still kind of understanding the whole idea of tokenomics and how it will play out in the long run. And because we don't want to kind of like just quickly like a lot of people are like just saying that they're utilizing like tokens and they're tokenizing this, tokenizing that, but in the long run these things should hold value. It should add value to the holders as well. And I think it's really complicated at the moment, and a lot of projects are still figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, just about that, I think I was speaking to you just before we came on about how Web3 native people who are kind of in the space, which I guess is a lot of people here, we kind of overestimate the importance of kind of the space and what we know and what we hear. And there's very much a feeling that we care so much about whether something's on-chain, it's an SVG, it's a ZK rollup, whatever it might be. But then you see a platform like Vivi come along and making, I believe, over 2 million a month with an NFT platform that anyone here that mints on OpenSea or looks rare or whatever will feel aghast at and kind of think it's awful. But because it's got the fiat off ramp, because it's got the fiat on ramp, because it's super easy to use and acts as a simple collector tool, you're seeing kind of much more mass adoption with things like that. So do you think that actually when these games do become mass adopted, and the big kind of epic games, the big gaming studios that are approaching this, do you think they're going to approach it in a completely different way that's much more Web 2, but with this kind of a currency that allows maybe certain amount pulled out. I think Roblox does this where you can pull out like a certain amount of currency at certain times rather than just being able to kind of play and pull everything out that day. Do you see a kind of a more of a Web 2 kind of application to this, David?
So, yeah, there's some thoughts in my mind which I kind of want to throw out. So, number one, I think Epic Games has never, mentioned that they call their games metaverses. I think it wrote like Fortnite was Fortnite before it was called Metaverse. So it's a little bit like sometimes Web 2 companies then take that kind of wave, like Meta, for instance, and then all of a sudden, and they actually planned that video chat program way before. It was there on their roadmap, and then all of a sudden they call it Metaverse. That's that. But I don't think it's something like per se negative. I want to elaborate a little bit on the issue of tokenomics because I feel it's important. And actually, for me, it's like not on the one hand, I completely agree. It's still early, and there are not like many complete like functioning tokenomics out there yet because it's still early. But like if there is one TradFi formula which I kind of personally use is from macroeconomics, which has like money times velocity is price times quantity. So it sounds a little bit academic, but it's actually quite easy. So money times velocity, and velocity is basically demand. So if your token does not create velocity, then it doesn't create GDP. It's as simple as that. So if you take Axie Infinity, for instance, if your velocity is basically based on, you need SLP to breed. How many times do you breed? I mean, maybe 3 times, I don't know. You don't breed like every day. Do I breed every day? No, I don't. So velocity is naturally limited, yeah? And then the other part of the formula is basically M, which is money supply. So, and you have to control, basically your tokenomics has to control the money supply. So that affects price times quantity, which is GDP, which is value. So I think that's a very simple formula that kind of take a look at. Is that reflected kind of in the tokenomics and the game design? Is that something where you have sufficient also burning mechanisms from the token that is used, not just for breeding only, because I breed only once per 6 months, I don't know. But is that really used like every day in the game? Is that baked into the game design? I think that's really essential. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thanks for that. You hinted on, controlling supply, and that brings me back to NFTs a little bit with regard to scarcity. And it's sort of NFTs as a whole has been based around scarcity, right? It's a membership, it's an access, it's being part of a club, it's being part of a community that you believe in. I often compare it to supporting a football club. Even if your club is losing, you go and watch them as long as they're playing every week. So as an NFT project, you've got to keep up momentum, you've got to be bringing out something new or some new story to your community every week. But that essence of scarcity and kind of exclusivity to a certain extent is very much kind of against what a gaming model needs to be to succeed. So how do you manage those two lines along each other? How do you keep the community feeling involved and exclusive and wanted at the same time as building a commercially viable game, Luke?
Yeah, I think that's why right now the NFT market is slowly becoming clearer. Who the blue chip NFT projects are, and I think that's going to kind of stick around, be it a bull market or bear market. So the blue chip NFTs, like the Bored Apes, Azukis, all of these, popular projects. Yeah, essentially, I think right now they're still kind of like an exclusive club. Even their new launch, like the other side, I think is also pretty hard to get. It caused a big hoo-ha on the ETH chain. And yeah, it's just, it's relatively exclusive, but a lot of projects nowadays, they're adopting free mints, free airdrops, and a lot of these other mechanisms to include a larger community because their focus is really to kind of share the joy of NFTs, share the purpose of NFTs, and to just gain mainstream adoption. And I think that's what a lot of projects are doing. And then they can have other drops later on, to earn money or other ways to earn money, be it merchandise, whatsoever. But even some projects like Crazylas, I think it was really interesting. They also mix of Ethereum and Polygon. So it's a coloring book NFT. It's really cool. So you can color and paint your own NFTs. The crayons were minted on Polygon and they're pretty cheap because it's Polygon. but the NFTs themselves, they were on Ethereum. And I think that's kind of a trend that I see in the market, that NFTs aren't just going to be on Polygon, aren't just going to be on Ethereum. We're going to see a real good hybrid of like utility NFTs on Polygon, so like we can mint like hundreds, right? And it's not going to cost a lot. And then maybe one PFP will be on Ethereum, and then you can kind of like mix it up together. And I think that's what a lot of projects are adopting now, and it's making it a lot more friendly for the market, a lot more friendly for even non-crypto natives. But me as an NFT fan, I think that's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, maybe one comment on this question. I think when you design games in the future, NFT scarcity, of course, is great and it drives value. On the other side, I think what we will see in the future is more also a merging of traditional free-to-play economics, basically baked into a play-to-earn, play-and-earn game logic with NFTs being scarce. You have to allow, basically, in my estimation, that users can grind. They can grind themselves up to getting certain NFTs. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the super rare, expensive NFTs, but at least you have to give the users a chance to, get those NFTs through grinding, which is a lot of time investment. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. So just coming back to you and your fund, you said you've raised, you've closed your latest round, etc. Are you looking for anything specific in the gaming space? Is there, you mentioned DeFi as well. Are you seeing kind of the intersection between the two? Is that something interesting for you?
So via our third fund, which is 160 million, we have invested in companies like Unbound Nation. There's also Zarta.io from Portugal, fantastic rockstar team that do like a NFT lending platform. Right now it's pretty much PFP focused, but in the future it will also allow your basically GameFi NFTs to generate basically the possibility, or to have the possibility to use that as a collateral and then borrow money. So that's a really cool platform. Looking forward to Zarta. We also invested in a company called Immortal.game. It's a chess game. It's a play-to-earn chess game. The NFTs don't destroy the basic gameplay, but it's also like a fantastic French team. Really handsome, good-looking serial entrepreneur from France. So we're very much looking forward to the commercial launch in summer. And in general, we're also just about to raise a fourth fund, which will be a pure NFT fund. So we will invest in NFTs. So that means then if you are an NFT artist, if you have a fantastic upcoming metaverse, we're also super bullish about land, about GameFi NFTs and PFPs. So we will invest in those digital assets going forward, starting in summer. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Anyone want to ask any questions? We've probably got time for a couple. Anyone? Hands up at the back. Yeah, sure. Yeah, go for it.
Hey guys, nice to meet you guys. Everyone's talking about games getting into NFTs, but I think when you look at the current audience of gamers, there's obviously a lot of vitriol and anti-blockchain sentiment. So what I'm wondering is, in the next 1 to 2 years specifically, how do we get over this hurdle of gamer sentiment towards NFTs so that it can actually have mass adoption?
Let me just quickly comment on this. Sorry to hijack. So it's actually good. Now this is for me like an advantage to be a little bit older than many in the audience potentially, because we've seen this with so many different changes in the industry, right? So I saw like 2007, 2008, there were browser games. People saying, "What is this? This is terrible. Free to play is a scam. They're trying to rip me off. What is this? I just want to sell my game as a paper download game. It's cost $30, $100." Whatever, go to GameStop. What are these PC, games that basically try to rip me off as free to play? And then the same happens with, mobile games. It's starting also with free to play, which is now the biggest chunk. It started as ad-based games, and now it's all free to play. I think the free to play economy is now 100 billion or something. And the game market is 175 billion. So I think the resistance to change is always a natural reaction to that. And of course, if I'm a traditional free-to-play publisher, I don't want someone to take away control from me because the assets belong to me as a company. If I give those assets away, the ownership to the users, that's something that's completely tough. And you see still games out there in the traditional free-to-play space that have been launched 15 years ago. They're still spending money in the game. Why? Because it's a sunk cost fallacy. People still say, oh my God, I have spent so much money in this game, I cannot get rid of this game, right? And now all of a sudden, you potentially could take the NFT away and use it in another game. It's yours. So that is something that many just don't understand yet, but this will, I think, it's just a matter of time until the mindset changes.
Amazing, thanks. So I think we have to wrap up. I'm feeling pressure from the back.
Sorry.
So it's okay. But thank you all very much. Thank you to our guests, and thank you very much for having us. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.